Everyone wants to know what's going to happen with 49ers Brandon Aiyuk as we inch closer and closer to the season, and especially this past week, ever since there have been so much speculation whether he's signed, whether he's traded, whether he's going to stay, and whatever. We've heard literally every scenario being reported as a fact. So it's just been a lot of noise. We've heard a lot of rumors, bunch of unsubstantiated reports, everything in between. But this is interesting because, as we know, Matt Mayoko's probably one of the most trusted 49er sources that we have. Just he's been at it for 30 years. He's the top beat reporter right now. He's the guy. We all know Matt Mayoko's legit. And he doesn't talk about certain things unless maybe there's a chance that it could potentially happen. So when Matt Mayoko today puts out an article effectively saying why the 49ers could actually trade Brandon Aiyuk, I think that deserves putting your antennas up and really trying to wrap your head around what a trade for Brandon Aiyuk will look like. Now, that is a big part of the article that he put out on NBC Sports when talking about this. He effectively goes through what he's hearing, and he's heard from Cam Marino that you could see right here. The Cleveland Browns and New England Patriots are the most likely trade partners. That's what was bouncing around on the internet on Saturday, I believe it was. The Browns could afford to pay Ayuk if wide receiver Amari Cooper was dealt to San Francisco in a trade, wrote Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com. And it's funny because if you did tune in for State of the Franchise with Jason Aponte this week, there were a couple hypothetical trade scenarios that I had posed when discussing just discussing the situation and if Brandon Ayuk could really be traded. Well, two of the hypotheticals that I posed were with New England and with the Cleveland Browns, including Ayuk for Amari Cooper straight up. Now, you can interpret that however you want, but with this situation continuing to develop, and you now have Matt Mayoko, who is the top 49ers beat reporter, openly discussing how a trade with Brandon Ayuk could actually happen. That's very interesting. I mean, look at this line right here. General Manager John Lynch said upon the opening of training camp that he expected Brandon Ayuk to be with the 49ers this season. But things change, Matt Mayoko wrote. So, this to me is kind of an indication letting us know that things could actually be headed in that direction of a potential trade. So here he says the Patriots are another logical trade partner for the 49ers. The Patriots could offer former 49ers wide receiver Kendrick Bourne as part of a trade that includes an enticing package of 2025 picks. Well, could you also see a potential trade? Maybe it's Matthew Judon and a second round draft pick in exchange for Brandon Ayuk. I think a trade that would be really spicy for me would be Matthew Judon, Demario Douglas, who was a draft crush of mine, and a second round draft pick in exchange for Brandon Ayuk. And then at that particular point, if the Patriots want to spend $30+ million per year on average for Brandon Ayuk, now they have that opportunity to. The 49ers get a top pass rusher. They get a quality wide receiver. Demario Douglas led the Patriots as a rookie in receiving last season. He's a phenomenal player. Former 6th-round draft pick. Again, he was a draft crush of mine, like one of my top draft crushes. So, hey, you want to make me happy by trading away one of the best players on this team when you're trying to win a Super Bowl? Well, maybe go out and try to get some of the best wide receivers you can. Now, the thought of Kendrick Bourne, I don't necessarily love that. Kendrick Bourne's coming off an ACL injury. We've had Kendrick Bourne before. He's a great locker room guy, great energy guy, great vibe guy, getting up there in age. He presents more as a possession type wide receiver. I don't think that's what we need for the San Francisco 49ers to replace Brandon Aiyuk. Now, if it happens and Bourne comes in and turns out to be a quality guy, sure, why not? But I don't particularly like that trade. So it's going to be fascinating to see what's going to happen. But as you can see in this very last line written here by Matt Mayoko, he says at this point, Ayuk and the 49ers have some options, and it appears more likely than ever that the 49ers are willing to make a trade. It might be up to Ayuk to determine the next move. Well, what is he talking about? Well, let's say hypothetically, the Cleveland Browns offer a trade to the San Francisco 49ers, and it makes sense for the 49ers, right? They're like, okay, oh, you're going to give us Amari Cooper in exchange for Brandon Ayuk, and then you're going to pay Ayuk. Okay, we like that. Well, let's say what he's alluding to is that if the 49ers were to be like, okay, we found a trade partner, someone who's going to give you the contract that you're looking for, but Ayuk could say, no, I don't want to play in Cleveland. Have you seen what happens in Cleveland? Have you do you know I don't think Cleveland knows what winning is. Cleveland might be allergic to winning. And it's from everything that we've heard, it's not a great city. And I'm not here to take a shot at Cleveland or anything. I'm just speaking about the reputation that Cleveland has, not only as a team, but as a place to live. And Brandon Ayuk could look at that and say, I don't want to go there. I'm not going to sign that contract. Yes, it's the figures that I want, but I don't see us winning here. I don't see a fit here. I don't want to go here. So that is also a potential for this situation. So this is a really interesting one to see how it's going to play out. Now, again, obviously, the tone for the majority of the offseason has been the 49ers and Brandon Ayuk will figure this out. But I think as we are now deep into training camp, preseason right around the corner, and this negotiation situation with no end in sight. Tyreek Hill just gets paid a massive amount of money. The wide receiver market is not slowing down. It is only going to get more and more expensive. And at this current point, it might be to a place where the 49ers can't even justify paying Brandon Ayuk what he's worth based on the market rate. So, what do they do? What happens? Do you take a bath on the value of Brandon Ayuk just to get him onto another team? What do you do in this situation? Because because the fact that Brandon Ayuk needs to be paid in a potential trade, you're not getting the most value in return. Think back to the Brian Burns trade. Brian Burns is an elite edge rusher at 26 years old. He got traded for a second and a fifth round pick, I believe it was. But the reason why that is all it took to get him is because the Giants had to pay him a massive contract that the Panthers didn't want to pay. So very similar here. You're trading Brandon Ayuk, who is a second team All Pro player. He's a ascending young 26-year-old wide receiver who's at the top of his game, but he needs to be paid. And because of that, you aren't going to get maximum return on your investment on Brandon Ayuk. You're not going to get what we think he's worth. You're not going to get probably what you could have gotten in the draft or before the draft. So, how do you manage this situation? What do you do moving forward? I don't know. I think that's why it remains to just be a wait and see. I think there's going to be a lot more chirping, a lot more talking, but maybe in the next day, 2, 3 days, something could finally pop. But before that happens, I'm very curious to see how you are interpreting all of this information, how you're interpreting everything that's happened since the handshake scene around the world. Where do you currently stand with the Brandon Aiyuk situation, and what do you think the outcome will be? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.